Meaningful consideration of Indigenous knowledge. The new Impact Assessment Act now makes it mandatory to consider Indigenous knowledge in all federal impact assessments. In the past, when major projects were assessed and approved by the government, it was commonplace to completely disregard the views and concerns of Indigenous peoples.
I believe an Indigenous knowledge needs to be at the forefront of an impact assessment. The reason I say that is because we know the layout of the land. We know where all our creeks and watercourse crossings are. We know where we hunt. We know where our berries are. The medicinal plants that everybody talks about that people say we don't have.
There is now an opportunity for Indigenous perspectives, knowledge, and expertise on the land to be brought out of the shadows and into the decision-making process. Yet, to realize this opportunity, action is required.
How that's going to look in real world and real practice, as this legislation is fairly new, is yet to be determined. But at the end of the day, how any Indigenous knowledge policy framework is developed or considered and how that information is input into process has to be designed by Indigenous people, with Indigenous people, for Indigenous people.
How Indigenous knowledge will be considered, weighed, and incorporated remains a critically important question that needs to be addressed by Indigenous nations at the beginning of the process. To seize this opportunity, Indigenous nations will benefit from developing their own Indigenous knowledge protocols, which set the terms of how the nation's knowledge can be shared and used during the assessment. If a nation's knowledge is to be used in an assessment, the necessary protections must first be in place to ensure that the knowledge isn't misused, misinterpreted, or misrepresented.
So it's difficult at times, I think, with Indigenous knowledge to trust the way that it's going to be interpreted by someone else. And I think that's the biggest task for us in our communities when we're reviewing things, is to make sure that the proponent or the people in government understand exactly what it is that we are saying.
The First Nations Major Project Coalition can support nations to develop their own Indigenous knowledge requirements and Indigenous research protocols to help promote more effective and respectful consideration of Indigenous knowledge during an impact assessment process. If your nation is prepared, then its voice will have maximum impact on the project throughout the process. For more information, go to our website to watch more videos in this series and download the Coalition's new guide to effective Indigenous involvement in federal impact assessment. Please feel free to contact us at any time. The Coalition is here to help.